Well, hello everyone. It is official. Spooky season is here. I got my first pumpkin cream cold brew today. There's construction happening all over Halloween Horror Nights. The medallion is up, the tribute store is going up, the bars around the hotels are going up. I think it is safe to say that spooky season has arrived on this almost final week of August 2024. So I'm here today to go over all of your questions that you guys sent me in for a special Q&A. So this is going to include quite a few tips, tricks, advice, sharing my Halloween Horror Nights knowledge with all of you to hopefully, in some cases, to help plan your trip. In other cases, you guys just wanted to know a little bit more about me and my opinion. So that's gonna be today's video. Roll the intro. There's been a ton happening around the park. I probably could have done a whole separate video just on news from around the park, food booths popping up, the tribute store construction going up, the medallion, Aventura, the aliens have arrived. We've got dead coconut rumors swirling. There's a lot going on. But today I asked you guys to send me your questions, the things you want advice for, or the things you want to know about me and my history with Halloween Horror Nights, and I have compiled them to answer as many as I can. We're gonna see how long this video goes, but I'm going to try to answer all of them. Settle in, get some popcorn, get cozy. This is the final video, the final sit-down video of Halloween Horror Nights 33, because next weekend is opening weekend. So everything else on my channel moving forward, Halloween Horror Nights related, will be direct vlogs from the event. So I will quickly introduce myself. If this is your first video, you're gonna learn more about me as this video goes on. But I am Liz, I am a diehard Halloween Horror Nights fan. I've been attending since 2001, and here on my channel, I talk about all the news, rumors, speculation, announcements, and starting next week, I vlog from the event. So at this point, there's a lot of content on my channel on this playlist from this past year of Halloween Horror Nights news, but starting next week, I'll be out in the fog filming for all of you guys. So make sure to subscribe if you're new. For everyone else, thank you so much for sending me your questions. There's so much to talk about, and we have made it through Halloween Horror Nights season. Starting next week, we'll all be in the fog together, and I'll talk about this more at the end. But if you see me out in the fog, make sure to say hi, because I'd love to get to put some faces to names and get to know all of you who have supported my channel all year round and love Halloween Horror Nights as much as I do. So let's jump into these questions. So I asked for questions at the end of my video last week, and you guys sent me a bunch on YouTube, but I also posted it on Instagram last night. I almost forgot. So I have a lot of questions from Instagram. I'm gonna start with YouTube and then we'll work to Instagram, but we're gonna try to get through all of these. So the first question is from KazMC6244, and they ask, what tips would you give for someone taking a scaredy cat to the event for their first time? Fun fact, I was a scaredy cat my first years going to Halloween Horror Nights. In fact, I say on this channel that I've been attending since 2001, but you know the first year I went through a haunted house? 2006. So it took me years to work up the courage to go into my first haunted house. Now I was 17 my very first year. Don't worry about the math on that. So I was still young and I was terrified, and the event was a little scarier back then than I think it is now. Those early years, I just did rides and I did scare zones. The scare zones, it's easier to escape. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, you can always go to a sidewalk, kind of get out of the direct mix of everything and watch from afar. My first year, I have fantastic memories of being absolutely terrified. All I could muster the strength for was scare zones. So I think you can absolutely still go to the event and have a blast doing scare zones, riding rides, taking in the atmosphere. But if you are brave enough to go into a house to venture in, I would say a few things. One, Halloween Horror Nights is not the most intense experience you're going to ever see at a haunt. It is noisy and it is scenic, but a lot of the scares are quick and fast because they have to push so many people through. You're gonna be in a conga line. There's gonna be people ahead of you, behind you, most of the times you go through a house. What I used to psych myself up with was the majority of the people working the event, especially back then, were college students. So if you're really having a moment of being scared, just remind yourself that it's probably just a college student in a mask, just a regular person back there working for the love of it. and not actually whatever slasher you're seeing in front of you. But I do encourage everyone to be brave enough to try a house, because once I finally went through one in 2006, I regretted all those years I hadn't. Maybe try one of the funnier ones like Major Suites and work your way up to the crazy, like, insidious quiet place houses. The next couple questions are from Hauser01. Do you or have you ever collected the HHN special plastic light up cups, aka the blinky cups? Yes, I have an entire collection ranging back from 2005, which was the first year that I was allowed to drink. Again, please don't do that math. I think I have one from every year since that point. It's just one of those souvenirs like the house shirt that I have to buy every single year. They sit in a storage bin in my closet, but I have to collect them. And believe it or not, some of those ones from the late 2000s, like the 2007 era, still blink. Their second question is, a while back I heard a rumor that they were considering bringing back Bill and Ted's. Have you heard anything through the rumor mill? I don't think this rumor is true. As much as I love Bill and Ted's and would love to have it back, I think it's just not a fit with the current event, and I just don't think they could get away with the jokes they used to get away with. A lot of times they were using IPs that they were not getting approval to do, and with the level that Universal is these days, I just don't think they can get away. Just like they can't do a Quiet Place house without getting approval to do a Quiet Place house. I don't think they can display those characters even in a satirical way with how popular Universal's gotten. So unfortunately, I don't think we will see Bill and Ted's return. From Oracle70, 2 questions. Do they put a cap on stay and screen capacity? I usually like to get there around 4:45 so I don't have to wait too long, but I'm worried about how big the event has gotten if they'll close it off early. In my experience thus far, there has not been a cap placed on stay and scream. Do I think we could get there? Yes, but worst case scenario, if say Simpsons area filled up, I think they would just send you to New York or another area that was already open. They're not going to kick you out of the park. They just might send you to a different holding area. That's the only thing I can think of. But to my knowledge, so far, that has not happened. They just keep increasing the size of these stay and scream holding areas to accommodate more people. Question 2, staying at Portofino for the first time, what's the best and easiest way to get to the park? I've never stayed at Portofino, but I have visited. Portofino has the boat service. Highly recommend using the boat service. The only time that won't be available is if it's storming. They will shut down the boats, and I assume at that point you have the option of a shuttle, but I'm not an expert on Portofino. Definitely ask your resort when you check in about that, but the boat services are fantastic. Highly recommend using them. You get to do security right there, and then they drop you off very close to the entrance of studios. So boats, boats, boats. The next one's from Austin Phillips, and there's a lot of questions, so we're gonna go through them. Number 1, since you have been going to the event since 2001, what has been the best and worst change / trend you've seen since you started going to now? I think the worst trend would be the amount of crowds. Obviously, I much preferred, you know, a decade ago, a decade plus ago, when it was a much quieter event. It was much easier to see everything when their streets weren't just absolutely packed with people. So that's gonna be the biggest thing. It's just the popularity of the event. The best change, what I was going to say the answer for, is a double-edged sword, because I was going to say I approve of the fact that the entire park isn't just filled with bars, because when I first started attending the event, it was very much a party atmosphere. It still is now, but not to the extent it was in the early 2000s. And so there are far less insanely drunk people in the park, but on the trade-off, it became a little more family friendly, and thus there's a whole lot more teenagers in the park, and I think that's just kind of a wash, you know, crazy drunk people or roving hordes of 14-year-olds. I think they're about the same obnoxious level in certain ways, so take that for what you will. Number 2, looking at all the past houses, the house I wish I could go through is the Wyandotte Estate House, which was from 2010. Assuming you went through it, can you describe what the scare beneath the floor looked like and felt like? I can't find any good footage of that scare in action. So yes, I absolutely did go through this house. 2010 is one of the years I was living in Colorado, so I only came to the event on 3 nights that year. I did go through the house, and the best way I can describe it from my memory, it was a person in a costume with a very heavy plexiglass. I probably wasn't, well, maybe, I guess it could have been plexiglass, but some sort of clear see-through strong flooring structure. From my memory, they were on their backs on probably what they used to like roll under a car, like a mechanic would roll under a car, and they would scoot through this space in the floor. I'm going purely on memory here, so I could be wrong. But from what I remember, they would be in an area where you couldn't see them, and then they would come floating through on their rolly board to their other destination. Sometimes you caught it, sometimes you didn't. I'm sure it was a very strange view for them, looking up and just seeing people walk over them, but it was a cool scare. This is just another thing on the floor that you had to walk over, and the person kind of went rolling by. Number 3, do you think they will ever try to do a Scream House again, considering the difficulties they experienced the last time? I'm gonna make this answer short, but I hope so. I think that maybe in the future they can work out that partnership. Obviously it's very complicated, but that was almost a decade ago now. Hopefully in the future they can work it out, because it would just be a shame to never see a Scream House, like the Scream franchise, at Halloween Horror Nights. Number 4, have you ever been to HHN Hollywood or have any desire to? I have not been. I do think I would like to go at some point just to cross it off my bucket list. I have been to Universal Hollywood, just not during Halloween. I think at some point I have to go see, just to get a feel for the other event. It's just very hard to schedule travel during that time of year, and I'm already spending a lot of money at Halloween Horror Nights Orlando, so it's hard to justify the budget to fly across the country. But yeah, some year I would like to make that happen. Next up, we have questions from Sarah Campbell. Number 1, is there any backstory to the sinister and surreal mascots type characters? There's the little tiny bit that they gave us on the social media post, and there's a little tiny bit that Laura Sauls gave in an interview, but so far, no. And it doesn't look like we're getting one unless we get a podcast. I think that time is running out, but we shall see. Number 2, what advice can you give when navigating through to the houses? I've heard people say to go counterclockwise to avoid as much of the crowd as possible, but I've also heard it doesn't matter. What is your take? So this is, which route should you take when you get in the park to try to avoid the crowds? This varies every single year based on the houses. I think this year it's a very IP heavy block in the very front of the park. So I do expect most of the lines to be in the front of the park with Quiet Place, Insidious, Ghostbusters. I think those houses are going to hold most of the bodies. If you are not doing Stay and Scream, if you don't have Express and you're trying to just get into the park as soon as you can and start hitting houses, I do think your best path will be to head to the back, because most people are gonna go straight to Monstrose, which is gonna be the very first house you see, and then just keep going down the line to the IPs right up front. Now there's a twist to that, because if you get in the park and you see that A Quiet Place or Insidious, you can be on the app checking, have a 20 or 30 minute wait when you get there, go there first, because it's not gonna get lower. So I would say download that Universal app, check the wait times. If that up there is already over an hour, head to the back. Most people won't have made it back there yet unless they did Stay and Scream. But if those up front are less than an hour, hit at least one of the IPs as quickly as you can, because those will stay a long wait up until the very end. The originals will drop the later the night gets, but if you see an IP less than an hour, go for it. Number 3, what is the weather like during October? This is extremely hard to answer because October is a transitional month for Florida. It can be hot, humid, rainy, disgusting, and it can be Florida fall. When I say Florida fall, I mean it could be low 80s with less humidity, or it can actually be chilly, especially later in October. We usually get at least one cold snap in October where maybe it'll be 75 during the day and low 60s or 50s at night. And really every once in a while we'll get an actual cold full hoodie night at Halloween Horror Night, usually near the end. October is harder to predict than September. September, I can just tell you, it's gonna be hot. I don't think we've ever had a cold snap in September. September is just gonna be hot, plan for it, humid, hot, rainy, gross. October, it varies. So definitely check your weather app. Still rainy season, it's still hurricane season. So check your weather app, still pack your ponchos, but you might need layers for if you start the night at 80 and it ends the night at 50 something. It can happen. Yeah, unfortunately October it's tough to plan for. Number 4, would you say Wednesday and Thursday night crowds are just as heavy compared to a weekend? They are not as heavy as compared to the weekends, but the difference is getting more and more negligible, especially because so many locals get the frequent fear passes, and the frequent fear passes are all good on Wednesdays and Thursdays. You're gonna have a lot of locals in the mix with you on those weeknights. However, a lot of them will leave early, so the wait times for the houses might drop sooner than a Friday or Saturday. Most people are committed to staying till the end on Fridays and Saturdays. On Wednesdays and Thursdays, by 10 or 11, the crowds might be thinning a little faster than the weekends. But do not go in expecting a Wednesday or Thursday to be quiet unless it's like November 5th when they run the event super late. It is going to be very busy. The next question is from Shannon. My question is, what time should I get to the event? Should I already be in the park, or do I have to wait at the gates to get in? I do have an express pass. Should I start with the most popular house or save it to the end? Okay, so that's multiple questions. So Shannon, if you're not doing Stay and Scream, then you will not have access to the park until around 6:30. Sometimes they open the gate earlier, but official opening time is 6:30 p.m. If you have an annual pass, or you have a day ticket, or you have a Scream Early Stay and Scream ticket, then you have to be in the park before 5 p.m. because the park is going to officially close at 5. So those with an AP, a day ticket, or Scream Early, you have to be in the gates before 5 p.m. You'll go to a Stay and Scream holding area and wait there until they release you. But if you don't have that option, but if you're not doing any of those, then you cannot officially enter the park until 6:30. Because you have Express, I would relax a little bit and not try to get to the front gates with all the masses of humanity also trying to get in the park right when it opens. I would wait until 7:30, give yourself a little more time to relax, and then enter. At that point, the front area will be cleared out. People will have already made it to the houses, and you can kind of leisurely enter. Now, the next step of should you do the most popular house first? This varies every year. So last year, for instance, Stranger Things and The Last of Us were the two most popular houses by far. They had the longest wait. So I know Last of Us last year, there were definitely waits of 45 minutes up to an hour for that house, even with Express. And so for that one, I did recommend people go either at the very beginning of the event or very end of the event, even if they had Express. This year, it's gonna be hard to know. I think with the IPs we have, Quiet Place and Insidious will probably be the most popular ones, but I think with having so many originals, everyone's gonna be spread out. So again, I will tell you, download the Universal app, check wait times, see what it's looking like. If Quiet Place is up to 180 minutes, come back to it later. But in general, with Express, you will be totally fine to see all 10 in one night, and you shouldn't have to stress too much about it. This question is from Andy. How do you think this year will differ from last year or previous years for someone just getting into HHN? What is the best piece of advice you could give to maximize their time, especially if they're coming from out of state? I think this year would be a strange first impression year because the event doesn't feel super cohesive compared to like last year when we had Oddfellow and all this lore that all connected. This year is feeling a little disjointed, so I do think it's a weird first impression of the streets and the theme and who are these icon characters. I think it could be a weird year. However, it's also a year very original heavy, and the originals are what made me fall in love with the event. So I think it could be a very exciting year for someone attending the first time and getting that full Universal immersive story experience. So I think it could be a really fun time. I do wonder how people's impressions are made of the event these days with it being so packed, what people take away from it on their first time. But to maximize the amount of time you have, if you don't have Express, then I would say get there early, stay late, and in those middle times of the night when the lines are very long, go see a show, try all the food because the food booths will be out and that's like a highlight of the event. Spend time in scare zones and really soak up all the atmosphere you can. And then beginning of the night, end of the night, run houses and try to get through as much as you possibly can in a short window of time. Next up we have May at 7545. Have you been on Halloween night? Is it crazy busy? I was planning to go on November 1st, but it's also a Friday, so I'm wondering if it's just as busy, if not busier. I have been on Halloween nights many nights, and let me tell you, if you hear anyone telling you that Halloween night is quieter they are lying to you. That may have been the case a long time ago, but I went on Halloween night in 2012 as my first time ever being there on Halloween night, and I was so ready to enjoy this empty park because everyone was out at Halloween parties and trick-or-treating with their kids, and no one goes to Halloween Horror Nights on Halloween night. Even as of 2012, that was a lie. So let me tell you, Halloween night is still very busy. What is Halloween night this year? Halloween night is a Thursday. Yeah, I don't think that will matter. I think it's going to be very busy. Halloween night is also filled with people in costume, even though technically you're not allowed to wear costumes to the event. Still happens, but it will still be very busy. If I were you, I would choose the Friday night, November 1st. Last year, the final Friday and the final Saturday were pretty quiet. Again, like nothing is empty anymore. But in comparison, the final Friday and the final Saturday were pretty quiet because a lot of pass holders didn't have access to those days, and or they're all waiting to go on the final night, which in this case, this year, it's going to be on Sunday. So I think the November 1st date would be your better bet. It is fun to be in the park on Halloween. The characters all enjoy it and have fun with it, but it is very busy. So this is the final question from YouTube. Rotting Pumpkin Reviews. This is the first year I'm not going opening weekend. Any tips for avoiding spoilers once the event has started? Listen, I have been in this boat for the past 2 weeks now, avoiding unmasking the horror tour pictures. The best thing that I did was just mute anyone I saw talking about going. I'll unmute them later. Very tough, especially on YouTube. Everyone's gonna be vlogging. There's gonna be a ton of media videos out with people filming in houses. So it is gonna be tough for you not to see anything for the entire month of September, because if you follow any of the accounts on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, we're all gonna be there and covering it. Now I will say my channel will be spoiler free aside from the scare zones. I will not be filming in the houses. So if you wanna see just scare zone footage and you don't care about having that spoiled for you, then my channel will be safe. But if you see any channels that are posting from media night, maybe don't watch those videos because those will have in-house content. It's very tough to dodge for an entire month, I'm sorry. This might be a long video, but I'm going through everyone's questions. I want everyone's questions to be answered. Starting off with that Disney wife. Do you have any yearly first day traditions at HHN? I don't think so. I think I have a new one. Last year, Ash and I went to the tribute store the day of opening night and did our shopping that morning and then came back into the park. And I think I did that the year before as well. So I think that's my new tradition. I think it's happened for 2 years in a row. And I'm planning to do that again this year. I think that's an official tradition now. I go in the morning on opening night, do my shopping, so I'm not having to worry about trying to go in the tribute store on opening night, and I have all my items. I don't know how much I'm buying this year, but it's still tradition. Other than that, I just try to see everything as much as I can. Like I try to go through all 10 houses. I try to zip through scare zones, knowing I'll spend more time in those later. I don't worry about food on opening night. I think that's really it. There's an unofficial tradition that I wish weren't the case, but most nights I spend the opening night in a poncho. That's just the opening night curse. So I wish that weren't the case, but yes, opening night, I will definitely be taking a poncho with me. This question is from Maddie. Most surprising turnaround opinion of a house. Hated, then loved. I don't know if I have one that I hated, but I have some that were low on my list that jumped up. And the first one that's popping in my mind is Nightingale's Blood Pit, where I think the first couple times I went through their house, I was like, this is fine. It's not as good as the original Nightingale's. It's okay, I guess, to it being near the top of my list because the cast, the closing cast, killed it. They were the spicy murder chickens, and I fell in love with the house because of that particular cast and getting to run it a bunch of times at the end of night. Nightingale's was my biggest surprise from first impression to final impression. Sarah asks, what HHN Park Loop song has been your favorite so far? Oh man, I can tell you the entire Park Loop was definitely HHN33. I still to this day play that playlist whenever I am decorating for Halloween. So this weekend when I do my full Halloween decor, I will put that playlist on. I will put it on when I'm driving to Halloween Horror Nights. That entire park loop was just perfection. I don't think we will ever hit that pinnacle again. It was just so good. So many good songs in there. I couldn't possibly pick just one. But yes, the HHN29 park-wide loop. If you have not heard it, it's on Spotify. Highly recommend searching for it. Fantastic. D of the trees, what is your biggest HHN pet peeve? Well, number one, it's that screaming sound effect that they've been putting in scare zones ever since, I want to say it started in Vikings, but it's been the bane of my existence every year since. I can pretty much guarantee it's going to be in the torture fair zone. All of us have talked about it every year since. We've all complained about it, and it's to the point where I'm pretty sure creative, they're just trolling us at this point by putting it in. Like, they know, they have to know we hate it, but they just keep throwing it in there anyway, and it's the absolute worst sound. If you know, you know. My second pet peeve would have been the never go alone slogan, but they finally retired that, at least momentarily, so I'm okay with that. As far as actually being in the park and experiencing the event, probably my biggest pet peeve would be entire groups of slow walkers who all take up the entire walkway. So if you have a large group, please divide yourselves, because we're all here shoulder to shoulder. We all are trying to get to places. I'm a fast walker in general, so large, massive groups of people who take up an entire space that you can't get around, that's probably my biggest pet peeve. I believe this is Muggle Locks, and there's a few questions. How do you suggest doing the event without Express? I've always had it but missed the drop. I'm so sorry. I hope you were able to get a frequent fear pass of some variety, or that you're able to go more than one night, because without Express it's very hard to see this entire event in one night. So I'm gonna operate under the assumption that you have multiple nights. And I would reiterate what I said earlier of get there early, run houses. Once the wait times get too high, chill in a scare zone, go watch Nightmare Fuel, try a bunch of foods, spend more times in scare zones, and just keep checking the app for wait times. Once it gets late in the night, a lot of those houses will drop, and then you can run a bunch more houses. But I think without Express, if you want to have a leisurely evening and still enjoy seeing as much as possible, I would really take advantage of hanging out, enjoying the fog, enjoying the scare zones, trying a bunch of the food, and trying to run houses whenever the wait times drop. Follow up, I should have read her next question. How can I maximize 6 straight nights without Express? Exactly what I said. I think you can absolutely see everything in 6 nights. And once you've seen everything the first time, I think you can prioritize what your favorites were and really aim to repeat those. Otherwise, with 6 nights without Express, you can absolutely see everything and just absorb, take in the atmosphere. And the final question from Muggle Locks. What is your all-time favorite house and scare zone, and why? So my favorite house of all time is Scarecrow from 2017. It was the most terrifying house, but also a visually stunning house. And for me, I love originals, I love scenic, and I love scary. That house perfectly encapsulated all 3 of those things for me. It was claustrophobic. The scare actors were on fire constantly. I got on every walkthrough. The finale was amazing. It just was the pinnacle of a Halloween Horror Nights haunted house. It was the best. I don't know that they'll ever top it. I have so many other houses that I love that were gorgeous but not scary, or terrifying but not the most beautiful set. Scarecrow had it all. And then of course my favorite scare zone of all time was Invasion, also from 2017, which is very funny to me because in the grand scheme of things, 2017, not my favorite year, but it has my favorite house and my favorite scare zone. But I absolutely adored Invasion. If you don't know, I do have an Invasion inspired tattoo on my thigh, so I loved it enough to get it tattooed on me. There's a little tribute to a scare actor that I had a connection with in that zone, where at the very end he gave me a space rock. So I have a UFO with the space rock on my body forever, and it's my favorite tattoo that I have. So I absolutely adored that zone. I will link to my playlist from that year because the vlogs are absolutely hysterical. My interactions with all of those aliens, my favorite memories of all time at Halloween Horror Nights. So that's why it's my favorite. I love the theme, I love the costumes, and then the casts were just chef's kiss, perfection, hilarious people. I am still friends with some of them. We literally met in that zone with them interacting with me, and we are still friends to this day. So it's very special memories to me that I am so glad I vlogged, that I can save and rewatch forever. So I will link that playlist. Please go check them out. My aliens are precious to me, and those are memories that I will keep for life. Felipe asks, how did you end up going to your first Halloween Horror Night? So this is a funny story and I will try to tell it in a shortened version. In 2001, I was in Orlando for a high school journalism conference. So if you are from the state of Florida and happen to have been on your high school newspaper staff, you may have heard it, but it's the Florida Scholastic Press Association, FSPA for short. I was the student representative for my district and we were in Orlando to plan the convention for the state for that coming year. So I was a junior at the time. We had two student co-chairs who were seniors, and one of them happened to know a guy who worked at Universal. She somehow convinced our chaperones that we should all be able to go to Halloween Horror Nights. How she worked that magic, I don't know. So this was not pre-planned. This is not a pre-planned field trip. It was literally the day of planning the convention. We finished our work. The convention was all checked off. The theme was planned. And she's like, hey, let's all go to Halloween Horror Nights. And somehow the chaperones were like, okay. So her friend got us the tickets and the 9 of us high schoolers went to the park with, I don't know, probably like 4 or 5 adults. And we went to Halloween Horror Nights for the first time. And I cannot tell you if I would have ever gone to Halloween Horror Nights without the peer pressure of going with people I did not know. So I'd met these people a couple days before. I was there in Orlando with my high school journalism teacher. She did not go. She sent me off with these other students and we went into the park. I was terrified, but also had the best time. So once we got in the park, they let us kind of do our own thing. I paired up with another girl who was also a chicken and didn't want to do houses. And the 2 of us navigated through the park, just the 2 of us, doing scare zones, riding Jaws, riding Earthquake, not doing houses, just going through scare zones multiple times. And we even stumbled our way into Bill and Ted's and saw Bill and Ted's without having really any idea what we were doing. I don't think we even had a park map. How we made it back at that time without cell phones and technology, I have no recollection, but I made it through and I had a blast and I've been going ever since. So once that point hit, then it was a must-see thing for me every year. And eventually I was brave enough to actually set foot in a house. But thank goodness for that random girl who was like, let's go to Halloween Horror Nights, and for our chaperones somehow approving that, because how different my life would be otherwise. I think at some point in this video I said I was 17 my first time going, but I was actually 16 that first year, so you know, math is hard. Marie Ora says, I would love to hear the plus or minus of the stay and scream zones. I will just flat out tell you that I am not the best person to speak on this subject anymore because I stopped really using stay and scream years ago. A decade ago, it was one of my favorite things to tell people to do. It was relaxed, it was not packed, it was kind of like a nice little hidden gem of a tip. But at this point, the secret is out. Everyone knows that stay and scream is a thing. It is no longer a secret. Every single stay and scream location is pretty well packed with people. But at a certain point, I started buying the pass with Express in it, and I just don't use stay and scream anymore because once you have Express, it's really not necessary. That said, I did stay and scream one night last year, and I used the Richter's stay and scream. And that one is decently pleasant if you get there early because there's a lot of indoor seating, so you do get AC. Just know that that holding area this year is going to release to major suites. The New York stay and scream is very open at this point. It takes up a lot of space. So if you don't care about being in AC, then there is area for you to find shade, get away from people, not be packed in like sardines. But if you really want to be some of those first people going through the IP houses that are up there, then you kind of have to stand in line for a very long period of time. And to me, I'd rather be waiting in that long line at 6 p.m., at 7 p.m., the sun's a little lower, than waiting and stay and scream in the baking heat at 4 p.m. So it's really up to you on your endurance level, how much you can handle being out in the heat and in crowds of people, on whether or not stay and scream is for you. We will know opening weekend which house each stay and scream location is going to empty out to. If you want AC, go to Richter's. I've heard Simpsons area can be a little more chill, not opening weekend. Opening weekend, everything is crazy. But New York has all the IPs, so I wish I had better things to say about the stay and scream experience these days, but it is a very well-known secret at this point and very packed with people. So bring your patience. I don't want to be negative on it because I know that it can still be a great resource if you don't have Express to churn through some houses right at the beginning of the night. I just want to prepare you for the reality that is very popular in modern Halloween Horror Nights times. Soul Fox NYC, do you think Universal would ever move Halloween Horror Nights to Epic Universe given it has a monsters theme land? I think maybe long in the future we could see Halloween Horror Nights at Epic Universe, but not anytime soon because that would require them closing the park early. They're gonna have so many years of people wanting to come see it for the first time that I don't think they're going to utilize it for Halloween Horror Nights. Change the scenery of the brand new park that they created by adding scare zones, but I do hope that what will happen is they'll keep Epic Universe open and maybe we get to utilize some of Islands of Adventure for Halloween Horror Nights. So right now they keep Islands of Adventure open for regular park guests because they're closing studios at 5. I'm hopeful that maybe with Epic, that park will stay open late on Halloween Horror Nights nights, and maybe Halloween Horror Nights can bleed into Islands to spread out the bodies a little more. We'll see. Hopeless Wanderer 1216. When you are in a group going through a house, are you first, middle, or last person? Honestly, it varies every single walkthrough. Most nights I'm going with other Halloween Horror Nights diehard fans, so no one's really scared to go through the houses anymore. So we all just take turns because sometimes it's fun to watch your friends get scared. Sometimes your friends want to watch you get scared. Unless I'm with Sammy and then she makes me go first in every single house because she is a scaredy cat. So it really just depends on who I'm with. Donnie Cubby asked, have you considered being a scare actor or would that ruin your experience in the fog? Fun fact, I did audition for Halloween Horror Nights for HHN33 back in 2013. I did not get cast. So this was back in the old days when they were still doing standard Halloween Horror Nights casting where you showed up to Universal, you got a number like a regular audition process, you filled out your paperwork, they took you in a room, and it was literally just a type out casting. So they put you in a formation, they put you in line, they told you a simple question, like I think ours was what was your favorite scary movie, and each person answers and then your line moves and the next line answers and your line moves, and it's literally they're just looking at your body type to see if they need your height and body type in a house or scare zone. I knew it was an unlikely case of me getting cast because I had a full-time job. So with my availability that I put down, I figured unlikely they're gonna pick me. They're gonna pick someone who has full open availability. So I don't know if I didn't get cast because of my availability or if they just didn't need my body type. It was the year that it was full Walking Dead streets. Didn't know that at the time, but that ended up being scare zones full of Walking Dead. But I just wanted to go for the experience. So I did go. I went through the full process, got to see behind the scenes, had some people in my room get cast. That was a year with Havoc, the second Havoc house. So they did ask us if we were willing to shave our heads, and you had to raise your hand if you were willing to shave your head. I was not. And then while we were waiting, they called some people back to ask them additional questions individually, but I did not get cast. Javi asks, what's your favorite icon backstory? Without a doubt, it is Bloody Mary. Whole story process through the website, told each week through diary entries and a flash website that gave us more and more hints into Dr. Mary Agana and her patients and how ultimately each house was based on one of her patients' greatest fears, and putting together the pieces that Dr. Mary Agana would eventually turn into Bloody Mary. And then once the event started, that was the addition of Boris Schuster and the whole investigative process and legendary truth. There is just so much lore from that year. But after how much I loved that story and followed through the whole thing, I cannot believe that that is one of the only years I have not attended since 2001. But I literally just moved to Denver a month before opening for grad school, and I could not financially or just logistically make it back for Halloween Horror Nights that year because I was just starting grad school. But oh, I am so sad that I missed 2008. After all that story, I would have loved to get to experience the park that year. Ashley asked, is Stay and Scream even worth it now, especially if I have Express? I've kind of gone over Stay and Scream, but if you have Express, I would say no. I would say relax at your resort if you're staying on property. Go check out Dead Coconut if you're not, or go to one of the restaurants in Saywalk or one of the other resort bars around the hotels. Chill and enter the park around 7 o'clock. Don't bother with Stay and Scream if you have Express, honestly. It just is hot and packed and full of bodies, and you'll be fine to see everything with Express without needing to go through a couple hours of sitting in the park waiting to be released. LA Dreams asks, what do you remember about your very first year of Halloween Horror Nights? So I've kind of already touched on that, but I will share a couple memories. But I'll tell you that I went to Halloween Horror Nights for the first time in October 2001. So obviously you know what historical event had just happened weeks prior. So because of that, they were really cracking down on security. It was a chaotic entrance into the park to begin with, because this is before the times where security was at the hub. Back then, they only did metal detectors during Halloween Horror Nights, right at the entrance of the park, and it was chaos. I'm so glad they do security at the hub now and you don't have to deal with that entering the park. But that year specifically, it was a little more chaotic. We went through security and there were chainsaw guys waiting for you right outside security. So you basically went through the metal detector, did your ticket, chainsaw guys right there. And I was a scaredy cat who had never attended this event, and I'm like, what have I gotten myself into? Chainsaw guys right off the bat. My main scare zone memories would be the Central Park area. I don't remember what this scare zone was called, but it was mainly just fog, a bunch of ghillie suits, and guys with shaker cans that had coins in it. It was really just all camouflage and very thick fog. And those shaker cans, very effective, especially your first time ever at the event. We were terrified. And then Amity still existed, and that entire scare zone in Amity was clowns. It was full of clowns and they were terrifying. We kept walking back and through that zone because we went into Jaws, we went into Earthquake, we came back for Bill and Ted, so we kept walking through there, seeing the clowns. And at some point during this, I purchased an item that they would never sell at the park now because it would be seen as a weapon, but it was an item where you spun it and it had a digital display and you could put whatever phrase you wanted on it. Another reason why they won't sell it now. So I bought one of those, and me being 16 and thinking I'm funny, put clowns suck, and then went through the scare zones spinning that. And yeah, they didn't like that so much. They definitely came after me more than they had the first walkthrough. So that was fun, but it's just funny to look back and think of things that would never happen in modern Halloween Horror Nights. Can you imagine just people going through spinning things? Oh, it would never work now. Monica asked, best way to do Stay and Scream. Ended up baking in the sun for 2 hours last year. Honestly, Richter's. And get there at 4 p.m, scan into Richter's, go inside, sit in the AC. That's the best advice I can give because I just have not done the other Stay and Screams to know better advice. So if you want some AC, get to Richter's at 4 p.m, scan in, go in, get a seat, chill. HHN Heather said, I love learning about different Easter eggs / reused props. Absolutely, this happens every single year. Over and over, there are items that are used in the houses time and time again. For me, I always like looking for items that aren't necessarily advertised as repeats, but seeing what I can recognize that's been reused. And I really hope this museum house has some Easter eggs in it. If you've seen posts, do not spoil for me, but I'm hoping there's some Easter eggs hidden in that museum. And finally, I believe this is the final question from Holly. First timer advice. I would say go with an open mind, go prepared to have your mind blown by what Universal can pull off in original content and entirely new sets every single year. I think there are plenty of haunts out there that are scarier than Halloween Horror Nights, but nobody has the budget of Halloween Horror Nights. And the fact that we get 10 brand new haunted houses that are full movie quality sets every single year, I think a lot of us who go to the event over and over and over start to lose perspective on that we are blessed to get 10 brand new houses of this quality, of this budget every single year. Will every single house be amazing? No, it's hard to accomplish that, right? And every house will appeal to different people. So I think it's a very unique Halloween experience to get to go through that. And it's easy to take that for granted. But as someone going for the first time, I hope you go in and you're just as blown away by the sets as I was my first time actually going through houses in 2006. Seeing what they could do inside. I thought I liked the scare zones, but seeing the houses, that's what turned me into a diehard fan. If you have the luxury of time, try the food. The food is turning into a festival of itself. There are so many different food options and they're fun, they're themed to the event, and they're part of the Halloween Horror Nights experience. Definitely see the tribute store. That is a huge aspect of the event these days. Spend some time in Scare Zone. It's fun to walk through, but for me, the best Scare Zone experience is finding a bench, finding a quiet spot pulled away from the crowds, and watching the scare actors work. Enjoy the fog, breathe in the atmosphere, and enjoy some screams of other people getting scared. Okay, I have been talking for a while now. This is going to be quite the editing job for me tonight, but I wanted to get to all of your questions. Thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciate getting to share with you guys, and hopefully my tips will help you in your journey. I hope you guys enjoyed learning a little bit more about me and my history with the event, and I cannot wait to be out there in the fog. To wrap this season up, because like I said, this is my final sit down video for Halloween Horror Nights 33. If you've been with me all season watching all these videos, thank you so much for sticking through, for helping support my little channel by watching and commenting and interacting with me. I will be at the event many nights this year, and I do hope to get to meet you guys in the fog. If you do see me out there in the fog, do not be afraid to say hi. I am always happy to get to say hi and have a little chat in the fog. I do have some friends coming in from out of country, so there might be some nights that it has to be like a really quick hi before I run off. As some of you out there watching can attest, I have met a number of you in the fog, and we have met again for years and years after that. So if you see me out there in the fog, do not hesitate to say hi. I am an introvert, but I am a friendly, outgoing introvert, and I will gladly take a little moment to say hi and get to connect with you guys who are on the other side of the screen watching these videos all season long. So next week, guys, next week, opening weekend, which means in 2 weeks, the Halloween Horror Nights 33 vlogs start on my channel. So stay tuned. More Halloween Horror Nights coming your way, but it's gonna be vlogs for the rest of the season. I'm gonna be there plenty. So I'll be there vlogging many nights of the event, out in the fog, capturing all my favorite moments in the Scare Zone, and having a blast with my friends. So until then, stay safe and stay spooky. Bye.